Sonia sat in the diner, poking at her breakfast, pushing cold pancakes through thick pools of syrup, her thoughts miles away. Then Javier spoke, his voice cutting through the silence.
How was your mother?
She's fine, Sonia mumbled, staring at her plate more than him. She told me Anna is having an engagement party this weekend. She paused for a second, then added, I want to go to it. Is there a bus station around here? Javier gave a half shrug.
I'm not for sure. Ask the waitress.
After Sonia caught the waitress's eye, she gave her a little wave.
You need more juice?
The woman asked, ready to pour. Sonia shook her head. No thanks. I'm looking for a way to get back to the city. Are there any buses around here?
Yeah. There's one that stops by the gas station, a few miles from here.
The waitress said, picking up Javier's empty plate. For a hot second, Sonia's face lit up, but the waitress wasn't finished.
The bus stops by every Sunday and Wednesday.
Sonia's little spark fizzled right up, and her smile faded quick. She thanked the lady, then her eyes moved over to Javier. She stared at him, silently begging, then mentioned, I need to be there on Saturday. Instead of Javier speaking up and offering to drive her, he just took another sip of his orange juice. Then Sonia finally asked, can't we drive back, just for the party? His face was already shutting the idea down.
For real? You want me to drive all those hours, just so you can spend a day in the city?
She rolled her eyes, then Javier reached across the sticky table, grabbing her hand.
Come on. Let's just enjoy our time out here together before we gotta go back to the city.
She let out another sigh, quieter this time. Then he leaned in a little.
You getting tired of spending time with me?
He asked, his tone shifting as a little edge crept in. You know I'm not. I just miss my family.
Sonny, I'm just asking for a couple more weeks out here. That's it. Then we'll be back in the city, and you can spend all the time you want with your family.
Her eyes dropped, landing on their hands tangled together on the tabletop. Then she gave him a tiny, almost invisible nod. Instantly you could see the tension drain right out of Javier's shoulders. He sat back, looser now, and his voice was back to normal, that earlier edge gone, as he informed her that they would pick up a real nice engagement gift for Anna when they got to Walmart, and Sonia could give it to her as soon as they got back to the city. An hour later, as they were walking through Walmart, to Sonia's surprise, Javier steered their wobbly cart down a quiet aisle packed with books. He started grabbing cookbooks, and not just one or two, but piling a whole bunch into the cart, cuisine of all kinds. Fancy French food, down-home barbecue secrets, spicy-looking Asian stuff, everything. Sonia reached into the cart, fishing out a thick one with pasta on the cover. Italian. I wonder if any of these had his pasta I had a few months back. It was so good. She thought out loud. It was called pasta con la something, she said, trying to remember the name. It was made with sardines and pine nuts. Javier made a face like it sounded disgusting. Yeah, it does sound nasty, but it wasn't. She flipped through the book. I had it the night before we came out here. We were working out at one of the PI's houses, and his wife cooked it for us. It was crazy good, and I haven't stopped thinking about it since.
Why were you all working out at somebody's house?
They don't have a real office right now. His face scrushed up in confusion. Then he chuckled a little, slightly relieved.
All this time I thought you was working with actual investigators, but you helping out a couple of home detectives?
Sonia laughed too, Then her smile quickly faded. You think I should look into hiring another PI? Maybe somebody with more experience? Javier quickly answered no.
Nah, keep working with them.
He said, voice full of support. Javier took Sonia's hand, and the two made their way out of the book aisle. A wave of something like relief washed over him, right there between the cheap towels and the plastic hangers. Javier had been picturing some real dull investigators working the case, but come to find out, it was just two ragtime dudes playing detective out of a little house in Queens. He figured that those PIs couldn't even hustle up enough money to rent a real office. There was nothing to worry about. As they stepped down the aisle, Javier's mind drifted back to Luis, laying everything out on the night that started it all, telling him to make it clean, no loose ends. Now he was walking hand in hand with the only loose end left. Sonia was the last one standing, the only pair of eyes that was close enough to see anything that mattered that night. He wasn't worried at all, and he definitely wasn't gonna fumble like Rico did, with his clown theatrics, inventing some wild story about hunting down the killer himself. Nah, Javier would just let Sonia's little team of pretend PIs continue to chase shadows and give Sonia the peace of mind she seemed to need. After grabbing some new DVDs, they piled the cart with more junk food than actual groceries and headed over to the electronics section on a hunt for Anna's engagement gift. They rode past walls of giant TVs. Then Javier stopped in a section where they kept the fancy kitchen stuff, like blenders and coffee makers. He grabbed not one, but two of those big heavy-duty KitchenAid mixers. One for Anna and one for Sonia. Then he picked up one of those pasta-making attachments to go with Sonia's mixer.
Figuring you to make those noodles you was talking about from scratch.
He laughed, making Sonia laugh too. They hauled the mixers and everything else back to the lake house, setting up the fancy new appliance in the kitchen. But Sonia somehow managed to break the pasta attachment in just 1 week. Then Javier's couple more weeks just kept stretching, and before she knew it, a month had slipped past. The days just melting into weeks. And the funny thing was, Sonia wasn't mad at all. At first, she had been counting the days to get back to the city, but started sinking into the peace of it all, surprising even herself. That quiet spot, miles from the noise of the city, was starting to feel less like a vacation and more like home. But summer's in, and soon August was breathing down her neck. School would be starting soon, and they had to get back to reality. So before she knew it, they had packed up the car, and Javier was taking them on that long drive back to the city. Pretty much the entire ride back, Javier kept his hand on her. If their fingers weren't laced together, his hand was resting warm and steady on her thigh. It was constant, that physical connection, like a comfort he seemed to need, and Sonia soaked it up. As they finally emerged into city traffic, the setting sun was painting the sky shades of orange, and the city never looked more beautiful. Sonia's internal map was already pointing towards Brooklyn, so she was confused when Javier guided the car onto the West Side Highway instead. "Where we going?" she asked.
I'm taking you home. You've been gone for a while. Figured you want to spend some time with your family.
She smiled at his thoughtfulness, but as they turned onto the familiar streets of her old neighborhood, Javier slipped his hand from hers, and Sonia was brought back to reality. Then she remarked, glancing over at him, "I'm surprised you drove up here, after how careful you've been all year."
Yeah, I figure it's fine. It's not like we'll be making this a habit.
He said with a shrug. After hauling Sonia's bags and Anna's bulky KitchenAid up the stoop, Javier gave her a quick nod goodbye. It was weird to Sonia, just standing there watching him walk back to the car without a hug or a kiss. Then, before sliding behind the wheel, Javier paused, turning back and saying,
"Thanks for going out there with me."
Sonia was confused by his sincere tone. He was thanking her like she had done him a favor. Didn't he know she would have gone anywhere to be with him? She gave him a confused nod. "Of course, Hav. You know I wanted to be there." He stared into her eyes for a second, and Sonia recognized that familiar far-off look, like he was 1,000 miles away, even though he was staring right at her. "I'll see you Friday," she smiled weakly, watching as he got into the car and drove away. The next day, it felt like old times as Sonia stood inside the small bodega with Anna, catching up. "I'm still sorry I missed your engagement party," Sonia said, grabbing a bottle of water.
Stop. I told you it's fine. It wasn't even a real party anyway. My father just threw some chicken on the grill, and my mother invited her friends and some people from church. There was no decorations, no music, nothing.
"Don't worry, after we do something. A real engagement party." Anna's eyes lit up.
For real? You don't have to do all that.
Sonia waved a dismissive hand. "Please, we need to celebrate you right. Something cute, like actually decorate. And real food, with nice appetizer. Not just barbecue chicken." She laughed. Anna laughed too, then asked,
How was your summer at the Make? I bet it was real beautiful.
"It was," Sonia beamed. "I had so much fun. We went swimming almost every day. And we just spent all our time together, watching movies and relaxing."
I'm happy for you. I was worried when you first told me you were keeping it a secret because of Rico. But if it works for you, I guess.
Anna shrugged. Sonia could tell her cousin wanted to say something but was biting her tongue. "I am happy, and it is working for me," Sonia said defiantly, trying to convince Anna and herself. Later that night in Queens, Nate answered the door to Tony's place, his eyes lighting up after seeing Sonia, while the rest of his expression looked flat out tired, looking like he was running on fumes. He smiled slightly and gave her a slow nod.
"Glad to see you still in one piece."
"You worry too much, Nate." She laughed, following Nate into the dining room.
"If you've seen half the evil stuff that I have, you'd be worried too."
"Yeah, but I was with my boyfriend," she said, like that somehow mattered.
I told you before, back when I was working on Lucky's case, that most of the time, it's the people closest to us that we need to look out for.
Sonia did remember, and then she felt a chill. Blue was still free, out roaming the streets. Then, like Nate was reading her thoughts, he threw in that Blue was still in the wind, but likely wasn't in New York. Then Tony cracked a weary smile, finally speaking to Sonia.
"Good to see that you're back for vacation, and you didn't get eaten by any sharks."
Sonia laughed a little. "Yeah, it was real nice. I had fun."
"That's good."
He let out a sigh. Sonia thought that Tony's voice seemed different, like he wasn't just tired. He seemed filled with some sort of real despair, a definite downgrade from the last encounter. But before Sonia could give any of that a second thought, Nate started speaking, and the reason for Tony's gloom became clear. Nate told her all about his conversation with Brianna, the girls who were pulled into the lifestyle by so-called friends, a bunch of poor girls invited to fancy parties, some black and brown from the Bronx, and the rest a bunch of poor white girls from South Florida, all of them flown out to some creepy private island where rich men old enough to be their grandfathers did the unspeakable. Nate looked like he might throw up as he gave Sonia the update, and Tony took a seat at the table, radiating raw anger, like those girls were his own daughters. 14 years old? That's sick, Sonia exhaled. And he has a whole island? Nate nodded.
Brianna said they even got a compound somewhere here in the States, but she wouldn't tell me where.
How was Brianna when you went out to see her?
She wasn't doing too good.
I really wish I could have gone up there.
It's fine. Like you said, you didn't plan on going on the trip,
He said, trying to ease her guilt. Then Sonia's eyes followed Nate's over to the board, which had morphed. Last time it was a heartbreaking collage of young black and brown faces. Now it was a gallery of old white dudes, their faces smug, looking like they belonged to the same evil country club. One of them, a guy with dark hair and a smirk, pinged something in her memory. She leaned closer. It was the mystery man from the Hamptons who had donated millions to the campaign. I've seen this man before. Who is he? Nate and Tony moved over to the photo quickly, their heads almost knocking together as they peered at the man's face.
We don't know yet, but where have you seen him before?
Tony's voice was sharp with interest. He's been to a few fundraisers. Then Tony's face changed, softening almost into a smile as he asked,
You think he'll be to any more of these fundraisers?
Sonia nodded. Probably. It's usually the same crowd of people.
You think you can get his name?
Tony pushed. Yeah, the next time we have a function and he's there, I'll check the guest list. Tony's smile widened.
The Golden Girl is back. We could have had some ID months ago.
You think you can get us into one of those parties?
Definitely. I'm the one who compiles the list. I'll just add your names. Nate nodded, his voice firming up as he stared at her.
If you're going to be deep in the mud with us, taking risks, then you need to start getting paid. It's only right.
But you're working on my father's case.
I already told you that this is my case. I'm investigating this because it's the right thing to do. And my sister works up there at Columbia. She said tuition at that school is crazy. So just take the money.
It is expensive, but I'm handling it.
Sonny, I'm paying you. End of story.
He turned to the board again, scribbling something on the document. Then Sonia stepped over to the table, her eyes dropping to the floor pattern on the worn tablecloth. Shame filling her as she said, With the new semester starting, I don't think I'll be able to help out anymore. I can get y'all into the parties and try to guess the names, but I can't come by anymore. Nate just gave her a reassuring nod, like he understood completely.
School and your job should be your main focus. I understand.
Sorry, Nate.
Don't be. We got it.
He reassured her. She offered a weak smile, but still felt a pang of guilt. She had enough time to help out, but Javier had a problem with it. Sonia stood there feeling that same embarrassment she'd had years before, while she watched Rico shut down the case. Then, as she gazed around the cramped room, overflowing with paperwork, guilt made her blurt out, I really think I should be paying you, especially now that I can't even help.
I told you this is my case now too. We good.
You can't even afford a real office. I want to pay.
Things were slow for a while, but summer was good. We're back on track, and I'm looking into a new office in Midtown.
Tony laughed from across the room, saying,
Yeah, we looked at a real fancy corner office with skyline views, the works.
Midtown? That's crazy expensive though, right?
Yeah, but we can afford it.
Nate said.
We about to wrap up for the night. Is that car service coming to get you, or I need to call you a cab?
A cab is fine if you can. Nate was already pulling out his phone when Sonia added, And I'm going to the Bronx, not Brooklyn. Nate nodded, then looked over at her with that all-too-familiar concerned look in his eyes, and asked again,
And everything is okay with you?
Shaking her head. Yes, Nate. I promise everything is fine. Friday couldn't come quick enough. Sonia had only been away from Javier for 2 days. But all day while at work, she found herself watching the clock and counting down the minutes until they would be together again. Get back into the usual groove and back in each other's arms. When Sonia finally stepped into the brownstone later that night, Javier was waiting for her in the den. He looked back slightly, his eyes scanning her with surprise.
Your hair is different.
His eyes moved over the new bangs framing her eyes, and the length added with freshly sewn-in tracks. Yeah, Sonia touched her bangs. You like it? Javier nodded with a slight smile. Her favorite sushi was spread out on the coffee table, and the TV hummed low in the background. For a minute, everything felt normal, comfortable. Then suddenly, that feeling started to unravel. Javier had been staring ahead at the TV the whole time and contributing nothing to the conversation she tried to start. His quietness even deeper than usual. Sonia felt his now familiar chill creeping up again. She recognized the shift. He was slipping back into the heavy mood that had him in a grip throughout the summer. She tried to ignore the knot forming in her stomach, focusing on her meal. Thanks for the sushi, Jav. He gave her a nod, eyes still on the TV. And thanks for getting your aunt to give me that raise. It was a huge increase, she said weakly. Rita told me you had to bump it up so high so I could afford my own apartment. Why'd you tell her that? She asked with concern.
Because I was thinking, it could be good for you to get that place with Jasmine. You could be closer to school, and you wouldn't have to wake up so early, staying out here.
I already told you I don't want to move in with them. I want to stay here with you.
I think you should take the place.
Sonia's feelings were hurt. You kicking me out?
No, I just think it'll be a good idea for you to have your own place,
He said, still not looking at her. So you are kicking me out? She said with shock, turning at the waist. Jav, what's going on? He pushed out his sigh, then said in a flat tone.
I told you Rico was coming back.
So? We can be careful like we've been doing this whole time, she said in a pleading tone. Sonia studied his familiar faraway expression as he avoided her eyes. She instantly understood all of his unspoken words. He wasn't just kicking her out of the brownstone. This was a breakup. Jav, we can still be together.
We can't risk meeting up once Rico was here.
I can't believe you're doing this. She shook her head.
Sonny, I told you what it was when we first got together. I told you I wouldn't put you in danger.
Yeah, and you also told me you wouldn't leave me. You said you wasn't going nowhere. Her voice cracked. I believed you.
I was hoping Rico wouldn't come back.
Maybe he won't.
He's coming. I know that for sure.
Jav.
Sonny,
He cut through her words.
this thing between us, it's gotta end.
His stern tone felt like a slap. She stared at him through blurry, tear-filled eyes, her mind scrambling to come up with some sort of compromise, refusing to accept his words. Then she said, like it just dawned on her, "This was your plan the whole time. You knew you were gonna leave me all summer. You took me out to that lake knowing you were gonna leave me, filling my head with a bunch of fantasies about us being together, talking about having 8 kids when you knew you would leave me."
I never planned on doing this. The whole time we was out there, I was trying to figure out how we could make it work.
You should have told me and we could have come up with something together. You said we don't keep stuff from each other, she shouted.
I just wanted you to enjoy yourself while you was out there and not be stressed about all this like I was.
She shook her head, then removed the anger from her voice, pleading with him again. We can move away like we said.
You missed your family after a few weeks. We can't move away.
I'll get used to it, and I won't complain, she begged.
We need to end this.
His tone clear and sharp as he finally looked over at her. She cried, shaking her head slowly. You don't love me. You never did. Not if it's this easy for you to leave me.
I'm leaving you because I love you.
He said in a hard tone, staring at her, like he wanted to drive the point into her head. If you love me, you come up with some other solution. He looked away from her again, saying,
Look, we need to be for real. We're not going to run off together and live happily ever after. This needs to end.
His words weren't just words. They felt like daggers, piercing her soul. Sonia's shoulders shook as she sobbed, but Javier remained completely still, his expression unreadable. It was as if she wasn't sitting beside him, heartbreaking because of him. She wanted Javier to wrap his arms around her, console her, even just apologize, but he didn't even flinch. With a surge of desperate energy, Sonia reached out her hand, clamping onto his jaw, manicured nails pressing slightly into the familiar scar on his cheek. She yanked his face toward hers, forcing his gaze to meet with her tear-filled eyes. Javier, I love you. For a split second, his eyes held hers, but his expression was still cold and blank. He didn't respond, just fought her grip and pulled away. She wasn't above continuing to beg him, but the words wouldn't come out. It was like her voice was trapped inside of her, caught somewhere between her throat and her broken heart. So she just sat there, crying and waited for him to say something, anything. But after a long while, the silence stretched and Javier just stood up. He coldly informed her that he had packed up her stuff and he would call her a car.
You back for another visit already?
Gloria called out, smiling warmly from the kitchen doorway. But the smile vanished the minute she saw Sonia's face, eyes swimming with tears.
What's wrong?
Javier broke up with me. Sonia mumbled, heading straight to her room. Gloria trailed behind her.
Aw, Sonny, I'm so sorry.
Gloria stood in the doorway. Then, with her voice filled with concern and already trying to strategize, she asked,
And it's nothing I couldn't work through. Something I couldn't work out?
Sonia crawled into bed, shaking her head as fresh tears burst through. With her own heart aching now, Gloria sat on the edge of the bed, pulling Sonia into a hug.
You're in pain now, but it'll get better with time.
It won't.
I promise it will.
I'm never gonna love anybody the way I love him.
You're right. You won't love anybody the way you love him, because you're gonna love somebody else in a different way and even more.
Sonia shook her head.
I've been done before and had my heart broken too. I felt like I never would love again. Then I met your father. And like I said, I loved him even more in a different way, especially after he married me, made me his wife. We started a life together. Then we created a whole human together.
She laughed slightly.
We had you, and our love for one another changed again, feeling even deeper. And that love I had with your father still overshadows any relationship I had before. Now that I look back on the others, none of those guys even compare to my husband. But back then, if you would have told me I would have loved anybody more than my exes, I would have said the same thing.
Sonia was no longer crying. Instead, she stared at Gloria, who looked like she was replaying all the moments of her life with Gary. Her mother was smiling slightly, like memories were flickering on some invisible screen before her eyes.
Now your father's murder? That's a kind of heartbreak I know I'll never get over.
She sighed, then quickly added,
But the pain does get less every day.
Hours later, around 2 in the morning, Sonia's tears finally stopped, drying right up, leaving behind something cold and hard, then buzzing hot. No sadness anymore, just pure, scorching anger. Javier had just put her in that town car with her bags, sending her back to the Bronx, like the past year had never happened, like they hadn't shared a whole life together. She lay in bed, the phone, a weapon clutched in her hand, and her thumbs flew, firing off angry texts accusing him of using her, manipulating her. She called him all kinds of evil. You played me. How could you just throw me away like trash? Firing off text after text, landing like little bombs. Then those angry texts turned into pleading ones, begging for him to just reply. Texts telling him how much she loved him and didn't want to be without him. Telling him that she would go back to the lake house. She wouldn't complain this time. They could go wherever he wanted. Later that morning, Sonia somehow found herself in the back of a cab headed out to Brooklyn. Lack of sleep and a broken heart had her feeling crazy as she continued tapping out furious text messages. The cab dropped her off, and suddenly she was there, back on his block. She saw his car parked up the street. He was home. Her fist pounded against the solid front door like she could punch her way through. Then she remembered she still had a key. She reached for it, fumbling through her purse just as the door ripped open. Javier was suddenly in front of her, eyes wide as he closed the door shut behind him. Then he grabbed her arm and said in a low, harsh murmur,
Yo, what are you doing?
Jav, you can't just ignore me,
I got company. If you need to go,
he said through clenched teeth. Who?
I'll talk to you later.
No, you've been ignoring me all night. We need to talk now, she yelled.
Yo, chill.
He said in a low, stern whisper. You used me, and now you want to just throw me away. His piercing glare softened at the sight of tears pouring from her tired eyes. Then he sighed a little, grabbing her hand and opening the door. He pulled her into the sudden quiet of the brownstone. The low voices humming from the den had quickly stopped as soon as they stepped into the foyer. Sonia saw them. At the same time, the suited men saw her. Luis was there with some other guys wearing sharp suits and tight faces, all turned, eyes fixed on her and Javier, confusion written all over them. Javier didn't glance their way, just kept moving, a firm hand on Sonia's back, steering her hard toward the staircase. He rushed her into his bedroom, spinning her gently but firmly to sit her on the edge of the bed. Then he stood over her, looking agitated.
Stay here. I'll be back in later. Just let me handle some business,
he said, his voice rough with impatience. Javier left out, the click of the door echoing loud in the master bedroom. Sonia sat stiff on the edge of the bed, the one they shared for months, in a place that had become her own but suddenly felt like it belonged to a stranger. She peeled herself off the mattress and stepped over to the dresser, catching her reflection in the mirror, and Sonia almost jumped. Her rumpled pajama shirt was twisted, half tucked into her jeans she'd just thrown on, and her hair looked a mess. She smoothed her hand over the spiky hairs that were no longer blended with her tracks. Sonia shook her head. She looked exactly as broken and out of her mind as she felt. Suddenly embarrassed, she wanted to go back home to the Bronx. But leaving the brownstone and walking past all those businessmen downstairs, and the thought of having to see them again sent a wave of dread through her. After giving up on fixing her hair, Sonia's gaze moved down to a photo sitting on Javier's dresser. Inside of a glossy silver frame was a picture of Sonia and Javier on her granny's porch. It was a photo her grandmother had snapped during one of their many trips out to Hempstead. Sonia stared at Javier's smile, then at her own. The two looked so happy on that porch. The place Javier first told Sonia he loved her. She slid into bed, wrapping herself in Javier's sheets, the sheets that smelled just like him. Then, despite the storm of emotions inside of her, the exhaustion won, and she sank into a heavy, dreamless sleep. When she woke up hours later, everything around her was black. The first thing she noticed was the weight and warmth behind her. Javier's chest pressed solid against her back, and his heavy, familiar arms locked around her waist. A dangerous feeling of comfort moved through her. Then before her brain could catch up, and before the pain could rush back in, she carefully twisted around, staying in his embrace. Her eyes adjusted to the dark. Then she just studied his face, staring at him and taking him in, like she was trying to etch every detail of his face into her memory forever. Then, as she lightly ran her hand over his scar, his long eyelashes fluttered and his eyes opened. "Why didn't you wake me up?" she asked as his arm tightened around her.
I tried, but you wouldn't budge.
Yeah, I was real tired. I didn't go to sleep last night. Hearing that he had caused her to lose sleep made Javier uneasy. He pulled her closer against him and moved his lips to hers, kissing her passionately, like he was trying to kiss last night away. The familiar pressure of his lips on hers was the sensation Sonia hadn't realized she craved so much. Then, as he guided her backward, with his weight pressing her down and his hand moving between her thighs, a switch flipped and reality crashed back in. She shoved against his chest, pushing Javier off balance. He stumbled slightly, confusion clouding the desire in his eyes.
Come here.
He murmured, reaching for her again, but she scrambled back, pulling away from his touch like it burned. "So you want to sleep with me, but you don't want to be with me."
You know it's not like that.
She wiped away tears, then Javier sat up too.
I love you. I will always love you. But this is how it's gotta be,
he said sincerely. He hugged her, holding on tight when she tried to pull away. Then, when Sonia finally stopped fighting, she hugged him back, sobbing against his chest. Chapter 10. Sonia crept out of the brownstone at 5 a.m. on Sunday to skip another painful goodbye. Javier was still knocked out when she left, but back home, Gloria was already up and in the shower. Later, after hearing movement in Sonia's bedroom, Gloria stepped into the doorway.
"You're up early enough for church."
She smiled. "I don't feel like going anywhere," Sonia replied, shaking her head.
"You haven't been in so long, and I know it'll make you feel better. Come on, get dressed. I'll call Anna. Freddie is driving a church bus, and they can give you a ride."
"Why would I need a ride? Church is only 2 blocks away."
"Because it'll give you a chance to spend time with Anna and your soon-to-be cousin-in-law."
Gloria laughed. Freddie Man and Anna pulled up in the big white church bus, smiling hard and way too chipper for that early in the morning.
Sonny, I'm so happy you finally coming back.
Anna beamed from the passenger seat. After Freddie hurried around to open the door, Sonia laughed, saying, "You don't have to do that."
It's no problem. And welcome back, Sonny.
He smiled.
Croaky does that for everybody. He even got a little step stool for the older ladies we pick up.
Anna grinned. The short drive that should have taken a couple of minutes stretched out to nearly 40 as they crisscrossed the Bronx, collecting church members. Everyone piled in, greeting Sonia with excited smiles and warm hugs. Then, when the last of the saints was collected, they finally headed to church. The minute Sonia stepped inside, it felt like home. More like home than any place she'd been in a long time. Giving her peace and a sense of comfort she seemed to be craving. A security and calmness that just felt right. Sonia made her way through the sanctuary, passing by the smiling women crowned in church hats and men nodding greetings from across the aisles, making her way to her usual spot beside her mother and waving to her Aunt Pam sitting up in the choir. Then, as Pastor Dorsey started preaching, something strange happened to Sonia. Her ears perked up, and she focused in on a sermon that somehow seemed like it was meant especially for her.
Sometimes in life, we put everything and everybody before Jesus without even realizing it. We look to things out in the world to make us feel complete, looking for it in a man or a woman, thinking that perfect relationship is the answer. We pour our hopes and dreams into another human, hoping they're going to fill up the emptiness inside. Or we chase success, money, or possessions, thinking that's the key. But let me tell you something. You can't find peace in the broken. They'll disappoint you because they ain't whole themselves.
He paused, leaning into the mic.
And you can have the finest house with a bank account stretching to glory, but still you're gonna feel that something is missing. Why? Because all the things in the world are temporary fixes for an eternal need. Only the Creator can complete the creation. You run into human beings looking for completion. Turn to the only one who can truly fill that space. Jesus is the epitome of completion. He is perfect and whole, and he is standing there ready, always ready. He'll never leave you. You can walk away 1,000 times, stumble and fall, but when you turn back to him, he's always there with open arms. He said it himself, "Come to me, I will never turn you away. Knock, and I will answer." Perfect in his patience, perfect in his love, and always waiting for you to turn to the only source, the only one who can make you whole.
He said with a peaceful smile.
Yes, he is. Never happened.
After service, while everybody else went downstairs to eat, Sonia stayed seated in the sanctuary, deep in thought, until Sister Gandy sat in the pew in front of her.
Welcome back.
Sister Gandy smiled, twisted at the hip, looking back at Sonia. Thanks. I'm so happy to be back.
That's good to hear. So you'll be making your visits here a regular thing.
Sonia nodded as Sister Gandy smiled bright. Then out of nowhere, Sonia asked, How was my father's funeral? Seeing Sister Gandy's confusion, Sonia quickly added, I wasn't able to go because I was in the hospital, and I always wondered what it was like.
Of course, it was hard for all of us. Your father was an amazing man, always here for us and always so kind. But it was also a joyous event. He went to be with his creator, who we all know he loved so much. So we mourned because we were going to miss him. But the service was also a lot of reminiscing about how much he loved the Lord and how much your father's presence here changed so many of us.
And how was my mother? Sister Gandy's smile slipped for a second, then regained its strength.
She was sad, of course, but she knew your father better than any of us, and she knew just how deep his faith was. To be honest, when I spoke to her after the service, she seemed more worried about you. She at least knew that Gary was safe in the arms of our Lord and had found peace in the comfort of our Savior. But you were still here among the wolves, and now she had the duty of protecting you all by herself.
She looked over Sonia's face with concern.
How are things with you? Where you been?
You know, busy with school and work, usual stuff.
And busy with your boyfriend.
She gave her an eye. My mother told you that?
You know I ask about you all the time, asking where you are, and she told me that you're living with him.
We did live together, but not anymore.
Well, that sounds like a good thing.
We broke up, Sonia clarified, and her voice laced with pain.
Well, I know breakups can hurt, but sometimes ending something that wasn't right in God's eyes, even when it's painful, is a step back onto the right path.
I don't think it was wrong in Dad's eyes, Sonia spoke up.
You were living with your boyfriend, and I'm assuming you two weren't sleeping in separate beds.
We were responsible and smart about everything.
What does that mean?
You know, we always use protection. She said the last part in a whisper, and Sister Gandy let out a loud laugh that echoed through the empty space.
The Bible don't say to use protection and you all good. It says wait until you're married. That's God's plan for you, his built-in protection.
Sister Gandy, I don't think God even cares about that type of stuff. We loved each other, and we were building a life together. I think God cares more about the genuine love between two people than whether or not we signed a paper at a courthouse first. I honestly don't think God is stuck on rules written thousands of years ago for a completely different culture. I think God looks at our hearts.
Sonny, you do know the Bible says that our hearts are deceitful and wicked, don't you?
She didn't. Sister Gandy went on.
When you follow your heart, a lot of times you just follow on lust and a bunch of lies. And yeah, it's been 2,000 years, but God's word still stands today.
She smiled at Sonia, saying gently,
I've been in your shoes, and I know from experience that God's rules are for our protection. He's not trying to stop your fun. He knows that good times against his will are just pain pretending to be pleasure.
Sonia sighed, knowing she was right. But the idea of no sex till marriage seemed way too outdated to ever make sense today. Then she thought about Javier and Rico, wondering if either of them would have waited. When she told Diamond she wanted to wait till marriage, he straight up laughed at her. She stared at Sister Gandy, shaking her head. Yeah, waiting sounds like a good idea, but that's just not how things work nowadays.
I know it feels that way. The pressure the world puts on young people now is something serious. But Sonny, listen to me. It is possible to wait. Maybe not easy in this culture, but it's possible. It takes faith, though. Faith that God's way is best, even when it's not popular.
Sonia sighed softly, giving her a doubtful look. If I tell guys I want to wait till marriage, I'll die long before I ever get another boyfriend, let alone a husband.
Yeah, a lot of men will walk away when they hear you waiting, but let them walk.
She waved away some invisible man.
Telling a man you're waiting for marriage isn't a roadblock, it's a filter. It'll show you who respects you and who respects God. You'll know quick if the man has a heart for God, and that's what you want in a man, right?
She looked Sonia in the eye.
The man who truly treasures you respects the Lord, he'll wait. So stand firm, Sonny. Trust God and pray. As a Christian, your commitment to God has gotta come first.
I hear you, and it won't be too hard for me to stand firm because I'm never dating anybody again anyway. I'm done. Sister Gandy's expression softened.
Well, the Bible does say marriage isn't for everybody. Some people choose to remain single and celibate, and that's okay. But if you're saying this right now because some little boy broke your heart, trust me, you'll be okay sooner than you think.
She smiled.
And later, when somebody else comes along and you fall in love, you gotta remember to stand firm in what you believe. If you really believe it, that is.
She paused, letting her words sink in.
You made mistakes just like the rest of us, and that's why we're thankful for God's forgiveness. But Sonny, you don't keep sinning just because you know he'll show you grace. Jesus said if you love him, you'll follow his commands. Don't take advantage of God.
Sonia nodded. Then Sister Gandy reached back, patting Sonia's hand gently.
I know you're in pain right now. Losing somebody you care about is always hard. But sometimes God rescues us, even when we don't realize we need rescuing. That closed door might be a blessing, getting you out of a situation that wasn't God's plan for you. This could be a new beginning that God is making. Focus on your walk with Jesus now. Let this time of your life draw you closer to him.
Everybody told Sonia that time would heal her broken heart. But as the months dragged on, her pain only seemed to get worse. Javier was constantly on her mind, and she missed him more every day. It didn't help that Javier seemed determined to avoid Sonia, deliberately leave her work early before she arrived so they never ran into each other. After realizing that time wasn't the cure she hoped for, Sonia decided to stay busy instead. She packed her schedule, hoping that busyness and exhaustion would prevent her thoughts from drifting back to Javier. So the next few months looked something like this: school, work, investigating her father's case, planning Anna's party, and attending church twice a week. Then after months of juggling everything, the night of Anna's party finally came around, and it was a success.
3 weeks since you were looking for your friend, the one you let hit it and never called you again. Remember when he told you he was about to Benjamins? You act like you ain't him, they give him a little trim to begin. How you think you really gonna pretend like you wasn't down and you called him again? Plus when you give it up so easy, you ain't even fooling him. If you did it then you probably did. Talking out your neck saying you're a Christian, a Muslim, sleeping with the gin. Now that was the sin that did Jezebel in. Who you gonna tell when the repercussions spin? Showing off your cause you thinking it's a trend, girlfriend. Let me break it down for you again. You know I only said cause I'm truly genuine. Don't be a hard rock when you really are a gem, baby girl.
Sonia called in some favors from her vendors and was able to borrow a bunch of decor. She works her magic and transformed that dinky little party hall into an island paradise. Anna wanted a tropical theme, saying that since she couldn't afford a destination wedding out in the DR, the engagement party would have to do instead. Sonia placed tall potted palms in the corners and used bamboo screens to hide the cheap wood panel walls. Then she placed bouquets of plastic tropical flowers on every table. Sonia and Yanni exchanged smiles as they watched Anna practically float around the hall, hand in hand with her fiancé, beaming with pride. Anna had been grinning nonstop and kept pulling Sonia aside, gushing and telling her that she couldn't believe the beautiful party was for her and Freddie. Yanni laughed watching the pair.
I still can't believe your cousin is getting married.
Me either, Sonia said, sipping her Tahitian treat. And thanks for coming out to celebrate with us.
Of course. I was just happy to get an invite. Haven't spoken to you in so long.
I know. Things been a little crazy with me lately.
Crazy how?
Just a lot going on. Sonia shook her head, making Yanni laugh.
Sunny with the drama. What else is new?
Sonia rolled her eyes. Then her gaze drifted to the dance floor, where her Aunt Pam and Uncle Eddie were laughing as they twirled. Nearby, she spotted her mother sitting alone at a table. Seeing her all by herself felt different to Sonia now. Since being dumped by Javier, her heartbreak seemed to make her more aware of the pain her mother had been carrying for the past few years. "I'll be right back," Sonia murmured, then crossed the room to her mother's table, gently taking her hand. "Come on, Mommy. Come dance with me." Gloria shot her a look, then laughed.
You don't dance.
"I know, not usually, but I want to now." Sonia tugged at her again until Gloria begrudgingly stood up. After the party wound down, Yanni dropped Sonia off. They said their goodbyes, with Sonia promising to visit soon. Then, as Yanni's purple Benz pulled away, Sonia turned towards her stoop, then froze. Halfway up the block sat Javier's Audi, engine running. Her heart beat wildly as hope surged through her. He was really there. He had finally come back. Sonia quickly forced away her smile, replacing it with a blank expression. Then she walked towards his car, a tense and nonchalance. But the closer she got, the more her calm began to crack, and a smile spread across her face. She reached the driver's door, waiting with anticipation, but it never opened. Instead, over on the passenger side, Rico stepped out. Just like that, Sonia's joy turned to dread.
Sonny.
He smiled while quickly walking over to her. Sonia stood there in shock as Rico hugged her tight.
"Baby, I missed you so much."
Sonia stood there wrapped in his arms while hers remained down by her side. She stared down into Javier's window, her eyes trying to catch a glimpse of him, but all she could see was the shadow behind the dark tinted glass. Sonia remained frozen in Rico's embrace until he pulled away slightly, trying to move his mouth to hers. Then she pulled away. "I didn't think you were coming back," she said in a flat tone.
"I told you I would."
His eyes moved over her serious expression, radiating pure, intense heat.
"Come on, Sonny. You can't still be this mad at me after I worked so hard to get back to you."
"I already told you not to come back." Rico took a deep breath to calm himself. Then, with a forced tenderness, he said,
"Come with me. We can go out, get something to eat, and we can swap."
"There's no need to talk. What's done is done."
"We do need to talk. Now that I'm finally back, I can explain everything."
He grabbed her hand and tried pulling her toward Javier's car, but she yanked away. "I'm not going nowhere with you." Rico shot her an accusing look, then asked,
"Who was that dropped you off?"
Sonia just rolled her eyes, asking, "Rico, can you please just leave me alone?" He grabbed her hand again, this time holding it so tight she couldn't pull away.
Come with me so we can talk.
I moved on, and so should you. He looked her up and down as his eyes grew stormy, darkening with anger. Then that he crept into his voice, which came out low and tight.
What you mean you moved on?
She yanked her hand away, but didn't answer.
Do you love him?
This time Sonia did answer, making her tone strong and clear. I do. His eyes filled with rage as he demanded to know who she was with. But after she refused to answer, Rico shrugged it off, all confident and cocky, as he said,
Don't matter anyway. You know that whoever you with now can't make you feel the way I did. Whatever y'all got going on, it's nothing like what we had.
You're right, she said with a nod. You two aren't the same, not even close. He's always protecting me, not putting me in danger like you did. He takes care of me, making sure I'm safe even when I don't want him to. Rico saw with her eyes and knew that she was for real. Whoever she was talking about had her heart.
Sonny, I didn't put you in danger. I made sure you was good. The lady in customs was supposed to...
There was no lady. Sonia cut him off, almost yelling.
How can you still be this man? You act like you got caught.
I could have, and I'm pretty sure I was about to.
I spent all this money getting back to you. You can't even talk to me.
He asked in a harsh tone. I never asked you to come back here. Just go back to Colombia. I don't love you, and I'm never getting back with you. She tried to head up the stoop, but Rico grabbed her arm, yanking her back down into the sidewalk. That's when Javier rushed over, grabbing Sonia away from Rico and getting in his face.
Yo, what's wrong with you?
Javier barked. If Rico had been paying attention, he would have noticed that Sonia and Javier were still holding hands. But never wanting back down from a challenge, Rico was stepping into Javier's face, meeting his fighting stance with his own, and looking at his friend like he had lost his mind. As the boys faced off, Sonia pulled away from Javier, racing in the house and leaving them both outside. Then, with his voice lower and protectiveness reeled in, Javier lowered his tone, but still spoke with intensity, as he said,
You need to get in the car. You out here making a scene, and somebody could call the cops.
As Rico's rage slowly died down, he began to think more clearly. He knew that one mistake, just one arrest, would let him back on a plane to Colombia or doing time in the U.S. for unlawful entry. As Javier turned off with Sonia's quiet block, he gripped the steering wheel tightly and let out a sharp, annoyed sigh.
I told you going over there wasn't smart.
You told me you was keeping tabs, making sure she wasn't with nobody.
Yeah, I was keeping tabs at work.
Javier corrected.
I wasn't about to be following around the city for years.
If I knew you wasn't going to do it, I would have gotten somebody else to watch her.
Rico's voice was low and resentful. Javier shot him a sideways glance.
You know how obsessed you sound right now? You need to let it go.
Rico slowly shook his head, staring out the window as if seeing a different reality in his mind.
Nah, she just mad right now. But she'll come back.
You said she'd come around after you got back to the city, but she still don't want to be with you.
That's because she got somebody right now, and she thinks she in love. But she'll come around once I get her new man out of the way.
Rico nodded with chilling confidence.